Hello and welcome to Big Ear. My name is Stonehood, and in this video what we're going to do is we're going to break down the sound levels that you face when you are in marching band. Now I'm going to get really narrowly focused on this video as I don't believe that there is enough information for those of you who are engaged in marching band in the world, and I want to be able to give you good information without trying to sell you something. And so what we're gonna do in this video is I'm gonna bring up this chart right here. It's gonna show you the recommended exposure times that a human being can be exposed to a specific decibel level before hearing damage occurs. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this chart and we're gonna break down every single instrument in the marching band and the decibel levels that they produce. And then we're gonna cross-reference from this chart to this chart what your recommended exposure time is as a marching band player. Before we get started, I must say, everybody's different. Everybody's at a different spot in their life. Some people already have massive hearing loss. Some people already have tinnitus, and even young people, some of you already have very, very, very unfortunate levels of tinnitus, and it's a really scary thing. I also have to say that we do sell hearing protection. It is our business. This is what we do. It's something that I believe that I have enough information. I've spent enough time in the marching band world to understand these things. That's why I'm speaking about it. I do want to share that, yes, this is a business. We make money because of this, but we've identified a serious problem in the marching band community, and I want to, with these videos, give information and just give education so you can protect yourself better with our products or with anything else that's out in the world that's offered to you. And I want to make this video with the least amount of bias that I possibly can. I just want to give good information. So here we go. And so as you can see on this chart here, there's a lot of instruments, and as you know, I mean, a marching band is a huge ensemble of different sections. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go section by section. I think that this is important, and if you get bored, I'm sorry. But I wanna make sure that we can really go down this list and we can really get an understanding of this, because it's important to me that you have this information, that at least this video is out in the world. So if somebody is questioning these things, if somebody's walking out of the band room with their ears ringing, with their head occluded, that they'll have some information that when they Google hearing problems with marching band, that this video will come up and I can help you, and that if you found this video, it's probably why. So let's start breaking them down. And so the first one is normal piano practice. So you can see that on a weighted time average, this starts at 60 to 90 decibels and it peaks at 105. So what this already means is, as you can see on this other chart, hearing damage begins at 85 decibels when you're exposed to that for 8 hours. And that is where I want to start at, is that even in rehearsal, even when you guys are warming up before rehearsal, that time when somebody decides to blast their flute or decides to blast the trumpet or a saxophone, or when somebody really starts ripping on their drums, those are the times you don't see it coming, and maybe someone's standing next to you and they just decide to do a little flute solo or a piccolo solo, or they do a saxophone solo right on your ear. You don't have your earplugs in, you get tinnitus or ringing in your ear in an instant just from one shot of exposure to 130 decibels, just because somebody decided to riff on their instrument. So it's a very serious thing. I mean, I understand you want to have fun and you're doing this because it's fun, but you are taking a really large risk with this, and you have to know the risk that you're facing. And if you're protecting yourself smartly with the right products, with the proper hearing protection, there's no excuse to not have fun, and there's no excuse to not wear hearing protection. So now we're gonna start with the loud piano. So that's the next one up on the list. So that's 70 to 105 decibels. And it's peaking at 110. So this is, you know, the Elton Johns of the world. Somebody really jamming on the piano, somebody really ripping and really getting into their music. If you're in chorus, your leader is playing the song. And now this applies a little bit more to chorus or to just a piano-centric kind of music, but it can still be in marching band, it can still be in any kind of orchestra, it can be all over the place, because the piano is the base instrument to where all other instruments branch out from. And the next one is electric keyboard. Those are 60 to 110 decibels. It peaks at 118 because it can go into extremely high tones, and it can really, you can alter it if you're playing a certain tone, if you are a little bit, maybe you're an experimental jazz pianist, or if you're playing futuristic tones, you can really get to a high buzz, over 20,000 hertz, and you can really push an electric piano super high. And as you can see on this chart, you can only be exposed to 85 decibels for 8 hours, and that's a time-weighted average, so that's over a full work day. And that's where it gets really interesting on that terminology, is a full work day. So these standards are for OSHA. So this is for an employee who's working an 8, a 10, a 12-hour shift. They can only be exposed to 85 decibels over their workday. How long are you playing an instrument? How long are you listening to music and then going into a practice room, and then at the end of your day, you're gonna go into a rehearsal area for another 2 hours, or you're gonna go play with a band, you're going to go to a show, or you guys actually perform, or you're rehearsing a full rehearsal, or you're going to an arena and you're going to play just a little warm-up and you're demoing certain music here and you're playing this here and you're all over the place with your music. It's not a certain decibel exposure rate. You are playing music for maybe 10 hours a day, or you're around music for 10 hours a day. Maybe as a musician in the marching band, maybe you're a member of a band outside of the marching band, so you go from one rehearsal space to another, or you go to a rehearsal space to a live concert, so you're getting consistently damaged and you're not wearing any hearing protection, or you're wearing the wrong hearing protection. So that's something to think about. So when we're getting into these pianos that are now reaching, with the electric piano, you're at 118 decibels. You can already see we're already beat this chart out of the water. You can only be exposed to that for under a second. Permissible exposure time to an electric piano at the highest frequency at 118 decibel peak is under a second. So with the third instrument down here, we're already off the charts. This means that hearing protection must be required. That's what this means. You have to have hearing protection in. So we're not even into the loud music. We're into an electric piano. These are the things that I'm trying to do with this video, is I really want you to start thinking about these things. What are you exposing yourself to? And really think about it. Okay, when someone plays this instrument, and that's the beautiful thing about education, is that once you know this information and you do your research on it, you Google it, and you understand this, there's no unlearning it. You're going to have this. You're going to understand, okay, that person's playing that, that's probably too loud. I need to protect my ears. And those are the actions I'd like to drive after you watch this video. I want you to start thinking about wearing hearing protection so you can enjoy your music, so you can enjoy the world around you. You can enjoy what you do, because it's a beautiful thing. So let's go to the next instrument. And because on the third instrument down, we blew this chart out of the water, we're going to bring another chart up. And this is going to go up to 140 decibels. And if you look at that, that's the sound of a jet engine. Really think about that. If you take this serious, it's going to really start making you kind of question and think about the exposure that you're facing on a daily basis. And then the next one is going to be the vocalist. So it's going to be from 70 to 85 decibels, a time-weighted average, and it can peak at 94 on this chart. The problem with that is that right now, as I talk like this, my voice is over 85 decibels. That's the problem with a lot of the decibel readings, is that the sound is so loud that you can generate that a voice, it depends what voice you are measuring. So if you're measuring somebody with a quieter voice, it's going to be lower. My voice right now is probably at 70 to 80 decibels. Just as I'm talking, I get more excited about things. It's probably going to go up into the 85 to the 90 decibel range. If I start shouting or anything like that, it's going to start getting louder and louder and louder. So the next two are the violin at the left ear and the violin just as an instrument itself. That peaks at 116 decibels. And I mean, if you look at the chart, you can do the math for yourself. I mean, that's sub 1 second of exposure when someone's playing a violin. And if someone's playing a violin right next to you, I mean, that's what you're facing. So what that means is that you're going to have massive damage to one ear, and then you're going to have some other kind of damage from this ear. And that's the really scary thing about this, is that the different instruments that are surrounding you, they can cause you different types of hearing damage. So you're going to lose more in this ear, you're going to have more in this ear, you're going to have better hearing in this ear is going to be deaf, and you can start losing it periodically, and that's the really scary thing, and that's what I don't want to see happening. So the next one is the cello. That peaks at 112 decibels. On an average, it's 80 to 104. So it starts at right on the cusp of you have to have hearing protection in your head when you're standing next to it. Imagine if it's at 116. It's under a second that you can be exposed to that. So really start thinking about these things. I mean, over an entire day, and that's exposure for an entire day. And that's what this chart is. It's exposure for an entire day. If you're at 116 decibels, that's immediate. That's your whole day's worth of dosage right there to 116 decibels in under a second. How long are you playing for? Start thinking about that. The acoustic bass, because it's a lower frequency, it peaks at 98. A clarinet and an oboe. With a clarinet, it's 112 decibels because it can reach such a peaking height. And that's another really interesting thing, is that you can start losing tones. So if you're standing next to a clarinet, if you're standing next to a piccolo, and we'll get into that, because the clarinet's ripping at 112, the oboe's ripping at 116 decibels, you will lose a tone. You can start losing certain frequencies of your hearing because an instrument is so loud, and you're in an entire section of these instruments, and you're all damaging one another over time, and then you're damaging the person in front of you. And there's a really cool chart, we'll bring it up right here. It shows the sound exposure for a range of instruments. So wherever you're seated in the orchestra, your positioning, you're getting damaged by these certain decibels that you're facing. I mean, there's some serious problems here, and there's some serious things I'm trying to uncover in these videos without pointing a finger. I just want to give information and tell you, okay, this is something to think about. You got to start protecting your hearing better. Now we get into a saxophone. Now a saxophone's 113 decibels at peak, and it just gets louder and louder. And then the really incredible thing is that these are in different tones. So the frequency of a saxophone player is different than a flute, than an oboe. So you're going to be losing different frequencies periodically if you continue to expose yourself without hearing protection in your ears. So the next one is a flute. It's 109 decibels. And then the next one is a flute up close, which is 118 decibels. So if you're closer to the instrument, you're going to be getting exposed to a louder decibel, which is 118, and that's just, it's off the charts. It's unbelievably loud. And you're right there for an entire show. You're right there for an entire rehearsal in a practice room, and you're exposing yourself. You're already way over the recommended exposure time. The next one is a piccolo. And this is where it gets unbelievably just off the charts. It's 120 decibels. Up close, it's 126 decibels. It's just wild when you start thinking about these things. Next one is a French horn. It's 107 decibels. A trumpet peaks at 113 decibels. And a bass drum, it's 106 decibels. And then we get to percussion. And this is where it gets mind-blowing. It's 125 decibels. And with percussionists, how many percussionists are in a practice room? How many percussionists are standing right next to one another, or in a confined space, or even outside? And yes, there are different factors when the sound escapes in a larger environment, but the reality is that you are still facing these decibels, and it is a scary, scary thing. And for those percussionists out there, it must be mandatory. You have to have hearing protection in your head. There's no excuse for you not to have it. It is massively, massively damaging your ears every second you're not protecting your ears. Please think about this. Now, we're going to get into more electrical stuff. So a guitar is 118. A guitar with an amplification on it is 124. And now we're going to get into when all these instruments come together. So an orchestra is 120 to 137 decibels. Now we're starting to factor in the audience into this exposure, and a band instructor and a section leader. You guys are getting exposed to these levels. So if you're a section leader out there, perk your ears up. You better listen to this, please. If you're at a rock show, it's 140 decibels. And then we get to what I was talking about earlier. Your iPhone, your personal listening device, whatever you're listening to. You're exposing yourself when you listen to that. And you're just stacking it. If you're really jamming out at 130 decibels, I mean, you're already way over the recommended exposure limit, and that's right in your ear. That's right next to your ear canal. And it's delivering that sound pressure into your ear, and there is no escape from it because it's inside of your ears, and you're probably not listening to it at a recommended level. You're probably jamming it, and you're getting going with your day, and you're rocking out, you're getting motivated to go, guess what? Practice more music and expose yourself more. So this stacks, and when you're exposing yourself, you're already over the limit before you step into the band room, before you step into the rehearsal hall. Just think about these things. And then if you do crank it up to full volume, it can be 110 to 142 decibels. And if you look at these charts and you correlate these two things together, you can see that there's a massive problem. And you can only be exposed to these things one time. Sometimes people get dosed with it and they lose their hearing permanently. Sometimes, and you probably are already experiencing this if you're watching this, you can get tinnitus for the rest of your life. I mean, the rest of your life until you are dead. You will have a ringing in your head. Be different tones, and it's just a horrible thing. And if you're not protecting yourself, you can expose yourself one day, and you can have that for the rest of your life. There's consequences that come from this. You lose your hearing. The average band instructor is retiring at middle age, or a little bit over middle age, and they have dual hearing aids. It's just an awful, horrible thing, and I don't want to see it happen anymore. So that's why I'm doing this video. If you have any further questions, please reach out and contact me. I hope that this gets you thinking, and you can see that you are facing incredibly loud, dangerous decibels every single day that you practice, every single day that you play, every single day that you rehearse, and you need to start protecting yourself and working hearing protection into your lifestyle. So I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has helped and has given you some great information, and I'll hear you later.